Nothing overly intricate, just headbanging, just great vocally. Ralph Schieffer sounds very similar to a Rob Halford, even kind of looks like him in some ways, but a little bit more raspy. Like if you took like Jorn Landa's voice and kind of mixed it with Rob, that's what you got there. So just, there's not a song on this album that you don't headbang to. There's not a song on this album that you don't go, dude, this is pretty freaking awesome. That is this album, and I'm telling you, it's one of those things like, I almost want to call it driving metal, because this is the kind of album I would put on and just cruise down the interstate. You know what I mean? Just like, it's just really, really good stuff. Heavy, accessible, something that anybody who is either a metalhead, you know, at a party or something, and you have some friends around, and you just want to turn on and let some music play. You could put on Rule Breaker, let it ride for 56 minutes. No one's going to complain. No one's going to be like, who the heck is this? They're going to be like, oh, dude, this is pretty awesome. Who are these guys? Instead of having you turn them off. Just a great album overall. I've become a much, much bigger fan of these guys because of this album. And, you know, little power metal here or there. But for the most part, it's straight up traditional heavy metal and just makes you put the horns up and headbang along. And I think it's a great album that, again, when you're looking at reviewing bands like Dream Theater, which is one of my favorites, Avantasia is one of my favorites, Megadeth's one of my favorites, and then we're going to do Primal Fear. Going into the first episode, I go, okay, well, obviously I'm going to check out all of them because that's what we do. But I'm not a huge Primal Fear fan. I mean, they're okay. There's a couple tracks of theirs I've liked it before, but let's see what it is. I was blown away. And if you fit into that category as well, check that out. Check out Inner Wish. Of course, that was Lacey's recommendation as traditional metal album of the year. And I don't disagree at all, Biv, because a consideration for me was of Times of Pride and Peril by Holy Grail. You liked it a lot more than I did, but it's definitely traditional metal and certainly an album worth acquiring and having, but not as much as Rule Breaker. Sorry.
Hard rock category. Hard rock best album. Hard rock category. Hard rock, yeah. 2016 best album hard rock category. 2016 Best Album Hard Rock category.
And our final genre of music award that we're doing here on the show is hard rock. And this is an interesting category only because there are so many metal bands that you can consider hard rock. There's so many hard rock bands you consider metal. And a lot of times you're just kind of put all into one category because you don't really know where to put them. And I can tell you right now, my choice for a hard rock album of the year is exactly that kind of band. But I'm curious, before I talk and get on my soapbox here, I'm curious what Lacey and what Biv have to say. So, Lacey, hard rock.
All right, I had about 2 or 3 albums that I really kind of considered in this category, and they're all very good. But I guess my final selection for it is Pretty Maid's Kingmaker.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I was trying to think about what do I even listen to that's actually really considered hard rock, you know, because I probably listen to things that are a little heavier than that. But some other ones that I listened to this year that I really liked in that category were also Inbound and Sirius Black. But I kind of narrowed it down to Pretty Maids. They have just a really good, solid album that I really liked and I think would be appealing to a lot of people who like that genre of music. So they kind of knocked it out of the park, I think, on that one.
All right, so Biv, I was going to turn it over to you before I gave my award, but based on that answer, I have to intervene.
Go ahead.
My hard rock album of the year is also Kingmaker by Pretty Maids. And it's funny because I don't know what your thoughts on this, Lacey, are. Is that I kind of struggled with this only because I don't really know where you put them. Because there's certain songs like Kingmaker, like the actual title track, that's a metal track, period. But then you hear, when God Took the Day Off, the way that the album starts off, or, a handful of tracks throughout the album where it sounds like something that you would hear like a late 80s, early 90s hard rock track. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
I would put them more into the hard rock category than metal, but I struggled with this one only because I'm like, are they hard rock? I think so. So it's funny that's why I started laughing when you said it, because I'm like, that's exactly what I did. If you got to hear the last episode, Lacey, I don't know if you did, but I don't know if you heard what I said about Pretty Maids.
I did.
In which I said, this is a band I didn't listen to because I thought their name was stupid. And that's dumb of me to say, but I'm just being honest. And I'm telling you, if you were dumb enough to fall into that category, shame on you for being dumb, and listen to Kingmaker now. It is really, really good, and it's the kind of album I almost want to call my wife metal, because these are the kind of albums where I could play it for my wife, who's not a metalhead at all, and go, oh, that's kind of good. That's what she would say. You know what I mean? That's the kind of music that is heavy, it's good, it's melodic, great choruses throughout, very catchy, and I'm telling you, top-notch stuff. Ronnie Atkins has a great voice. Of course, a friend of the program, and I know a friend of Lacey's even more so, Kim Olsen from Anubis Gate, plays keys on the album. I mean, there's just a mountain of reasons to listen and like this album. So, good call, Lacey. I mean, great minds think alike. Obviously, we have the same nomination for Hard Rock Album of the Year. And speaking of great minds thinking alike, I have a feeling that Biv, of course, will be nowhere near where we were, which is why I will say what I say. But I'm just kidding. Biv, Hard Rock, man, what did you have?
Well, notice, Lacey, he didn't say that shit when he and I both agreed on Almanac and Thornbridge, the great minds think alike.
No.
See, he didn't say it then.
No, he was copying me on that one. That's all.
Right, even though I went first. As far as this category is concerned, I did have Pretty Maids in my final top five considerations, as well as Sirius Black, another great release. Crystal Bowl was another consideration.
Oh, dude! I forgot about them, and that was a great album.
Oh, Deja Voodoo was awesome.
That was really, man, I admit that.
Hardline was another. I did, I've listened to that more and more since we reviewed it. But my final stopping point is an album I had to go back to from earlier in the year, probably March or April, and that is Prayers for the Damned by 6 a.m.
Nice.
Just a phenomenal, well-written CD by, three musicians who I think are on top of their game. Even as old as Nikki Sixx is, he just continues to write great bass lines. DJ Ash was awesome. I just can't say enough about their musicianship. And to put out a double CD, essentially, because 6 months later they released Prayers for the Blessed, which is almost as good in my opinion. To me, this was just, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but they certainly distanced themselves from the rest of the category over time. And that's why I went with 6 a.m., Prayers for the Damned.
Well, I'll tell you, my runner-up was also the same album, Biv. Another album I considered, actually, but I was, again, teetering on, should I have Pretty Maids in this category, was actually Generation Chaos from Kiss and Dynamite as well, which I also thought was really good this year. But yeah, I admitted last episode, this is where I'll make up to saying that Biv doesn't have a, brilliant mind there. But 6 a.m. was a band that I hit and miss on. First time I listened to them, the more I listened to them again, more I realized I kind of missed the boat there. They're a really good band and definite close consideration for me, but Pretty Maids won it out. But 6 a.m. is really good too, Biv. So good call. Hey, guys, out of all the categories, I think this one especially, I couldn't disagree with anything. Well, obviously, I couldn't with Lacey because we had the same thing. But you could easily make the case that 6 a.m. could be Album of the Year in hard rock as well. And I would not be like, oh, you're crazy, because I think that's a great choice. So that wraps up our 4 subset genres, whatever you want to call them, of metal. Now, it's time to have a little fun here because we go into the year, like we said in the beginning when we first started talking to Lacey, of having a lot of albums that we were anticipating. Albums that we really wanted to hear from some of our favorite bands, yada, yada, yada. But every once in a while, you press play, you're so excited, and what is this? Happens. And that is a disappointment. So what is this year's disappointment of the year? Let's find out.
A swing and a miss. A miss. When your favorite band does a song like this. Like this, like this. An album this year you'd like to forget. Forget. 2016's biggest disappointment.
So we spent the first 4 categories talking about the albums that were like, yeah, man, this genre, these guys rule. And here we are now talking a flat-out disappointment. Whether it's an album, whether it's a band that you love, whether it's a band that you heard good stuff about, and you go, I don't get what everyone's saying about these guys because this kind of sucks. Either way, what was the biggest disappointment you had? I can tell you what mine is. It probably would not surprise many who listen to the show very often, but if you're new to the show, stay tuned. But, Lacey, we had our fair share of disappointments this year as well. What was yours? What was your number one disappointment this year?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me, and this was a pretty easy pick, I think, but as far as on the level of main disappointment, especially starting out, was Circus Maximus's Havoc.
It was. It came in the second place for me as far as disappointment.
Okay. Yeah, that was something that I was really looking forward to. Been a little while since the last album. Really looking forward to it. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but as far as like their track record and what I was used to hearing from them, it just was a personal disappointment. So that was mine for the year.
I don't disagree with that at all, and I know that you and I especially are big Circus Maximus fans, Lacey, and Havoc, like we discussed later on when we had you on, I think, for the Prog Power episode, it's grown on me a little bit. It isn't as god-awful as I thought it was initially, but it's still by far and away the weakest stuff they've done. And it's one of those things that when it's just one of your faves and you know the level of music they can make and then they come out with that, you go, huh? So, right on.
Made me scratch my head a little bit.
Absolutely. Right on. I mean, for me, that was 1A for me. I have one that beat it out slightly. It shouldn't surprise... I guess Havoc surprised me more because I had higher expectations thinking it was going to be one thing and it didn't end up being it. But I guess as time went on, I've grown to like it a little bit more to where I wouldn't consider it my biggest disappointment. Had we done this 5 months ago, I may have said that. But a couple of tracks have made me go, okay, this isn't as bad as I initially thought. It's still not great, but it's not bad. But no, good call. Absolutely good call. Mine, before we go to you, Biv, my biggest disappointment, like we're talking there, is Havoc was certainly a very, very close runner-up. My biggest disappointment, even though I shouldn't be as surprised by the results based on what their last album was, but to go from a band that was one of my favorite bands, like top 5 favorite bands, to just making music that flat out sucks. And that is Opeth's album this year, Sorceress, which was just a big steaming pile of jazz crap. It's just awful. It's proggy for the sake of being proggy, but not heavy and not good and just uninspired crap. And Michael, I'm telling you right now, get your head out of your ass and start writing music that's worth listening to. Because I can't think of one old school Opeth fan who goes, yeah, man, these guys are as good as ever. I don't know of one. Find one, please, Lacey. You know lots of metalheads. Find an Opeth fan who's like, oh, yeah, man, Sorceress is great. I've liked Opeth for the last 10 years, and this is some of their best stuff. They don't exist. So I don't know what they're going for, what they're doing. And Heritage was an album that didn't make a lot of sense to me either, but you have bands with those one-off like weird ideas where like, oh, we're just going to make an album that sounds like this and it sounds like crap and